Chapter 6. The captain came in. Jenny stood, blinded and mute, unwilling to break dominant and submissive protocol by speaking without permission. Even if she didn't know this Dom, she trusted Sir Joseph, and he trusted the captain. She wanted to trust him too. "Kneel," he rumbled, commanding, demanding, the low notes in his voice resonating within her. She dropped to her knees. For a long, telling moment, all she could hear was the sound of her heartbeat, the anxious measure of her breath, and the lap of water against the side of the ship as it gently rocked to and fro. The captain circled her, boot heels marking his passage. He smelled like the sun, earth, sea, and leather. Naturally clean, decidedly masculine. He stopped behind her and leaned down to murmur in her ear. "You," he growled, "will call me master. Now, wench, what am I to do with you?" Captain Hook straightened and came to stand in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body and smell the musk of his sex. "I know what you wanted. I know what you said. No penetration. I can respect that. There are other avenues to explore, if you will let me lead you. This is your chance to stay or go. But if you stay," he said firmly, "the clothes come off." Jenny bit her lip and nodded. Part of her resisted, but she knew that they would be in his way, making some things hard and other things impossible to experience. "Words," he growled. "I need to hear you say it." She inhaled sharply, swallowed hard. "Yes, master." "Good girl." His rumbling voice was like a velvet glove, stroking her, a sharp contrast to the metal hook that skimmed the side of her neck and followed the top edge of her chemise from right to left and back again. "Corset," he said. She felt for the center opening and began to unhook it from the waist up, freeing herself from its constraints as she went. Beneath her chemise, her breasts sighed in sweet relief. As much as she admired the mounds they'd made bulging from the top of her stays, she was used to wearing a bra only when needed. At home, she generally went without. What she lacked in size, she more than made up for in sensitivity. She could nearly bring herself to orgasm just by playing with her nipples. Captain Hook hummed his approval. "Now the chemise." She found the cord that gathered her neckline and pulled one end free of the bow. Loosening the lace, she felt for the hem, crossed her arms, and pulled it up and over, careful not to dislodge her blindfold. "Fuck." A single word, bursting with masculine appreciation, despite her small breasts. Her body was toned from running and denuded thanks to her first wax job. The pink had almost faded from her now hairless genitals. He circled her again. She held her breath and remained motionless. Still on her knees, she could only imagine how he saw her. She wasn't just built like a gymnast. She'd competed when she was younger, until a shoulder injury had ended her dreams of glory. Forced to sit on the sidelines while she recovered, she'd started reading. Falling in love with the written word had forever changed her world. He traced the scar from her surgery with his finger. "I want to tie you up," he said. "Will this be a problem?" "No, master," she managed. "As long as I'm lying down or standing, not hanging with my weight pulling on it." He stood silent for a moment. "You're to tell me immediately if you have any problems, understood? Good girl. Keep the stockings." She waited, breathless, a small gasp escaping when she felt the metal hook slip beneath one breast, lifting it for his consideration. Her nipples tightened, almost painfully, into hard as diamond points. "Do you need to void before we get started?" he asked. Jenny's face flooded with color. She'd been so nervous she hadn't eaten or drunk much of anything today. "I'm good, master." "From what the ship's surgeon tells me, you've been bad, very bad, hiding this from your friend." He leaned over and smacked her ass. What were you thinking, Another spank. That's for starters. I'm going to sit and you're going to crawl to me, following the sound of my voice. When you reach me, you're going to stand between my legs, with your right side facing out. I'm going to turn you over my left knee, and I'm not going to stop until that bottom of yours is cherry red. Oh, God. I need your safe words. One to slow down if you're having trouble processing what's going on. Another word to stop the scene. But keep in mind, if you use it, we're done, at least for the time being. Now, what's your safe word to stop? Jerry, she blurted, thinking about what he'd just said. He hummed, considering. Uncommon, but Cherry will end the play. What's your word if you need me to slow down? Banana. Surely she could remember those. One more time, he rumbled. Your word to stop? Jerry, master. He inhaled sharply. When he spoke again, the timbre in his voice revealed just how much he wanted her submission. And your word to slow? Banana. Good girl. He walked across the board floor, boot heels tapping, stopping God knew where. The bed? A chair? Not that it mattered. He was bent on chastising her, and she was resolved to accept his punishment. Penance of sorts, that just might assuage her guilt. Lord knew, nothing she'd done had lessened it one bit. Captain Hook settled himself. Come. Resigned to her fate, she crawled to him, listening for his words to guide her, stopping only when her fingertips touched his boot. Stand up, he ordered, shifting his feet and making room for her between them. Turn. Step toward me. Again. There. She stopped between his parted thighs, with her left leg touching the seat of his wooden chair. Now, bend over, he ordered gruffly. She did, folding her body in half across his thigh. He caught her legs between his. Her head and arms dangled on the other side. Perfect. Feeling the tension in her muscles, she forced herself to relax. Hanging over his legs stretched her buttocks tight. If he didn't go easy on her, she'd feel his spanking much more than if her body was bent over both of his knees. He took his time before starting, rubbing her bottom, squeezing the muscles in an erotic massage. When the first blow fell, she understood why he'd positioned her this way. To protect her from the hook on his left hand, he was using his legs to stabilize her. He rubbed at the hurt, then spanked the other side. Rubbed it, then repeated, spanking harder with each stroke of his right hand. The tears came, pouring like rain as she inwardly apologized to Marcus for not being fully honest with him. Her flesh warmed, getting hotter and hotter as the intensity grew. If she'd been skeptical, reading submissives' accounts, describing their spanking experiences, now she understood the warm-up, the build, the point of transmutation, when endorphins were released and pain yielded to pleasure. By the time he finished, she had melted onto his thigh.